Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, Pacific Standard Time. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am Servet Hassan. And I have got a really good show. I'm excited about the show. I read this woman's book, and I loved it. It was excellent. Her name is Elena Zaiman. She's the first woman rabbi from a family spanning 6 generations of rabbis. So that's incredible in and of itself. But she's also a chaplain, and she travels around, and she's doing workshops and speaks on the subject of what this book is about, and in all kinds of places right now, because she's on a mission. It's a way of connecting people in a deep and very personal way. She's a great writer. The name of the book is called The Forever Letter. And please help me welcome Elena Zaiman. Hi. Hi. Welcome.
Hi there, Servet. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I think are you calling from the East Coast? Where are you?
No, I'm calling from the West Coast. I'm in Seattle.
Oh, you're in Seattle. Okay. All right. So you're on the same time as I am, which is great. Good. Because I get very sleepy people when they're on the East Coast. But it's still Sunday night, and I appreciate you taking the time away. And as I said, now, you have to understand, I've read a gazillion million books. I've been doing this radio show for a long time, and I'm a writer, so I read voraciously anyway. But I loved this book. And we're going to talk about what it means, the Forever Letter. But I have to tell you, I sent out a lot of press material, promoting the show, and I got all kinds of really great responses from people, from listeners. I got one this morning from a woman who is from America, but she's currently living in India with her husband, and she said that her great-grandmother wrote her a letter at her birth, and her grandmother gave it to her on her 21st birthday. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, because that's it inspired me even to want to write a forever letter. So first of all, what is the forever letter?
So a forever letter is a letter that we write to people we love and care about. And it's a letter in which we want to, our hope is to deepen, heal, and uplift our relationship with whomever it is we're writing to. In any direction we're writing, a forever letter, you can be writing to a parent, you can be writing to a child, a teacher, a student, a friend, whomever you want to write to. And, there are many things that people want to probably do in a forever letter, and there are forever letters they're all over the place. You can ask for forgiveness and you can forgive. The idea is to really express love, gratitude, those types of emotions and feelings.
Right.
And
Right. It's based on an old Jewish tradition, though, right? Ethical wills, correct?
Yeah, it is based on that. And I think what I got from the ethical will, which is an ancient Jewish tradition from medieval times, and it was a letter at the time that parents wrote, usually a father initially and then mothers, but to their children, to pass on their values and their traditions. And oftentimes these letters were pretty commanding. Read this letter however many times a year, follow its injunctions. It's really a sense of, this is how we lived our life, and this is how we hope you will live yours. Ritual, ethical precepts, and stuff. So, but what this letter did give to me, and what I found so powerful about it, was that there is this sense of urgency. So some of these parents were writing when they went off, traveling for a bit and were afraid that they might not return home. Sometimes near the end of life when they thought, I don't know how much more time I have left. And sometimes, they wrote it when the child was born and added to it over the years. And the idea was, it's not about monies or possessions, but it's about what is the value that is most important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a sense of urgency to these letters, of really wanting to get on the page what it is that you deeply, deeply feel. And so that idea of urgency, the idea of a heartfelt letter, and was what kind of took me to this place of the forever letter. And it's not, the forever letter is not a letter of commandments. It's not saying you should do this and you must follow that. It's a letter where we're really trying to be open about who we ourselves are, and open about who the person we're writing to is, and about that relationship. And that's the essence of the letter.
Correct. Right. Because you do talk about it in the book, that it does deepen not only your relationship to somebody else, whoever you're writing this letter to, but yourself, because you have to dig deep inside to do this correctly, I would think. Yeah,
absolutely. So we're writing to express love and gratitude, share wisdom and personal stories, provide encouragement and comfort, accept responsibility for misunderstandings and hurts, and maybe ask for forgiveness and forgive. I mean, there could be so many pieces to this. Express hope.
Right.
But this, as you said, the process of self-reflection is at the core of writing forever letters. And we first begin by honestly assessing ourselves and our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears, our actions. And then we use this understanding to strengthen our human connections and to live as well with greater intention. So it helps us in terms of how we look at our own lives, and it also helps us in terms of the relationships we have, and how do we want to show up in those relationships, and can we deepen them, and can we heal them, and can we uplift them? And oftentimes, we can, whether we're writing to someone with whom we have a very conflictual relationship, or whether we're writing to someone with whom we have, a really loving relationship. It's often that we can, it doesn't matter. There's always an opportunity to move a relationship further than where it now sits.
Right. You even say in the book you do, Elana, you say that that even if the letter isn't kept forever, the wisdom and love we share will be. That's And on a personal note, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I really do believe that, and there are some people who might not be savers, and they might not want to have clutter around, and they might elect not to save it, or nowadays, like, people are, you'll take a picture of it, or you'll save it in a file so that you can always return to it if you want to, and it's not clutter around. But no matter what, I believe that when someone reads really heartfelt words that you've written, whether they actually save the letter or not, it sticks, it stays. It's the heart is, Yeah,
we forget that we used to write letters all the time. I'm going to be 60 soon. So when I grew up, people wrote letters. We didn't have email. So now really, I'm not lying about my age, but it was a nice thing to receive mail, letters, physical letters that we kept, So are you suggesting if the new generation doesn't want to do that, they can still do it electronically or take a picture and keep it anyway for this new generation?
I think, look, I get some emails that are really beautiful letters. And what I do with those is I like saving letters, and I like rereading them when I'm in a funk, or when I want to be in touch with that person or hear their voice. And so I actually will either save them in a file on the computer, but because things change, I often print it out and put it in a 3-ring binder. So that is what I do with something that comes in that's more than just a little email. But there is something about, first, like you said, there's something about handwriting, right? That you see someone's handwriting when something comes in the mail. And even if you type it, because your handwriting might not be very good, there's a joy of receiving something in the mail. And as you say, what we get today is mostly, bills and homeowners things and whatever else comes in. And it's nice to be able to actually get a real letter that then, and the beauty of a letter is that the person, if they're not prone to printing things out, they can save it and look at it again and again, read it over at times that they might want to read it over. And it also pulls people away from the computer. So my father-in-law wrote a letter to my husband, his son-in-law, and his stepson. And he was, wanting to share whatever he shared. And he actually, instead of emailing the letter, he mailed it. And my husband is on his computer all the time. Mm-hmm. And so what he had to do was open the letter. He turned away from his machine. He read the letter. And it took him out of the place where he normally finds himself. And so I think it enabled him to read that letter with greater intention than just skimming it. It's like, oh, here's something. Oh, wow. Okay, maybe I'll get back to it. Maybe I'll read it later. No, it's right there, and you hold it in your hands. And so I still suggest, no matter what generation we are, I too was from the letter writing generation, but there's something about sending something in the mail that makes it special and that gives it its own place. So you don't have to be online to read it. You can be anywhere and take it with you.
Yes, exactly. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I had a friend, I'm talking about 30, 40 years ago now, who committed suicide. But right before he did that, he sent letters to a friend. I only know about two of them, his best friend and his mother. And I know that she kept that letter till the day she died. And it was with her forever. I never asked what was, it's not if she wanted to tell me, she could have. It wasn't my place to ask what was in it, but I do believe it gave her peace of some sort, which is an amazing thing. The other thing I do is I've never written a forever letter yet, but I am after reading this book that you've just written that I love. But, I still mail cards. Like my parents are not that far away, and I may be seeing them in a week or two, but if it's a birthday or something, I still put it in the mail. I think they just like getting some, so I think you're right about that. But it's I love the little stories that you tell too. There were a couple that I love. For one thing, I did not know that Maya Angelou published, a letter to my daughter when she doesn't have a daughter. So it's like,
it's a great book.
Oh,
I
made a note. Yeah, I made a note to get it.
Yeah, she has one son, and she basically, wanted to write a book for women of all faiths and colors and ages everywhere, a sisterhood kind of book. And it's really, it could be for guys too, but it's her life lessons, and a beautiful book. But it gives you a whole different take on, how do you want to write? To whom do you want to write? And, maybe you're writing to a child, and maybe you're writing to children that you didn't have, and you're giving it to your nieces and nephews, right? It gives a different kind of outlook toward it.
Right, exactly. And then there's another reason for writing, another story I found fascinating. See, I learned a lot from this too. I learned a lot about the actual connecting with people, but also, like, you told the story of Alfred Nobel, who we know for the Nobel Prize. But he actually, in the book, you go into this story about how he actually made his fame and fortune from inventing dynamite. And then when his brother died, they got confused. They thought he died. They wrote an obituary. So he read his obituary before he died, and he went, "Oh my God, this is what I'm going to be remembered for." And then he came up with the Nobel Prize, right? I think I got the story right?
Yeah. And so basically, it's not that we can change, it's not that by that seeing the obituary that was really his and not for his brother, he was able to then say, wow, is this how I want to be remembered? And it is his life. He can't deny that. But he can also sort of shift in terms of, well, if that isn't the only thing I want to be remembered for, how do I want to be remembered? And that was when the Nobel Peace Prize came into existence, and the various Nobel Prizes. And so he could turn it around. It's not that he denied his previous life, but he switched it. And I bet in another 10, 15, 20 years, at some point, new generations might not even know that story.
I didn't know that story. I didn't. And I love the fact that there are stories like that in there. And there's also examples of the types of letters to write. But I think the first thing that might be most difficult for people would be deciding who to write the letter for. Because it, like you said, in the past it used to be parents for children. But now I think it could be anybody that's important to you at all. And you could write more than one forever letter. There's no, statute on it. You could do several if you want to. But it is about making and deepening a connection. And also, I would think passing something of yourself on to somebody you love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about, you can write many forever letters to the same person over the course of a life. Mm-hmm. And some people probably have have you received a letter you would consider a forever letter?
Gosh.
From anyone in the course of your life?
No.
That you would want to hold on to forever? Maybe it didn't have the name forever letter, right? But was there, do you have any of those?
I have like cards my daughter sent me over the years, but they're, oh Mom, maybe I've never told you this, but they're short and sweet. No, I've never received a forever letter. Have you?
Mm-hmm. I got one. I believe I got from my father when he handed me the ethical sort of bill that he had written. And I have saved tons of letters I've received over the years that were meaningful to me in different ways and that I return to still to this day. Someone, when I was deciding to take a sabbatical, a dear friend wrote to me and gave me strength to make that move it was to write the book. And I was like, how can I do this? How can I do this? And she's like, you can do this and you need to do this. And she wrote me this beautiful note and I've saved it. And so, I hold on to these pieces, and some might be very short and some might be a little longer, but they're the voices of the people I love continue to sort of give me confidence, whether they are here or not here anymore. And that's another piece about the forever letter is that, given our world today and let's look gun violence and let's see the climatic changes and devastation, we really don't know how much time we have. And it's not just about, being older. It's about really not knowing. I mean, look at 9/11. We have so many things going on.
Right.
It's we always say, I can't tell how many people say to me, oh, I'll get to it. The letter, it's a great idea. I'll get to it. And we put it off because, first of all, it's hard to sit down and do, and we claim we don't have the time. But the truth is, it's hard, and we need to make the time because imagine, sitting down, really saying what you love about the person you're writing to, what you maybe feel like you wish you had done better, and then having them receive this, and then it maybe opens up something that allows the relationship to move forward in a different way. Right? In ancient times, the ethical wills oftentimes were left to be found after the person died. And the forever letter, at least, is something that I think these letters should be sent now because it can open up a conversation. And that's what this is about. This is about connecting with ourselves as we write, and this is about taking that connection and connecting with the people we love.
Yeah, excellent. That's a good way to put it. Absolutely. But that's what people are going to say, right off the bat. And you talk about this in the book. First of all, it's hard for people to, if they're not a writer, to write anyway, because they're not used to that, sitting down and you're a writer, I'm a writer. We know what it's like to sit at a blank screen or with a piece of paper and then basically slit your wrist and let the blood flow. That's kind of what it's like. Right. But it's hard for people to I mean, what would you suggest if someone says, well, I'm not a writer. I don't know what to say. And I know what you said in the book. You say, well, be yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
just like
and that's
open up.
That's really what it is. It's about, it's not someone like, no one wants you to sound like, Shakespeare or Milton. They want you to sound like you. And so even people who might have come from different countries or who don't have a facility with the language of, let's say, English or whatever language their grandchildren or children or friends know, to have someone even just write down the words, even if it sounds like they're, I want you to have, right? I mean, the person that's writing this down could even write in that, put a V for bunt, right? In other words, they want to hear the person's voice who's speaking. And it's hard to put words to the page, but what I have found is in the book there are prompts and exercises and different activities. And when I use them with people and teach around the country, I have found that just people sitting and giving the time to it and thinking about the questions and the sentence completions and everything enables people to just realize that they have a trove of information and wisdom and love and maybe some issues they want to resolve and whatever it is, and they're going to now write about it. And, you might not use all of the material that you write initially, but it sometimes brings up stuff for you that you might not have known otherwise. I just led a workshop today, and a couple people actually said the exercises that we did, just helped me see more clearly, right, who I wasn't at a certain point in my life and who I am now, and those are different people. And had I been who I was now, I might have been able to, see my child in a different light. And maybe I would have been a better, mother to that child. Right. But I wasn't then who I am now, but that reflection of doing these exercises helped me see that. And that then might somehow weave its way into a letter with a child that's a little, that relationship is a little strained. So it's, it's a lot of self-reflection. And I think that's the piece that people try to shy away from. And once you start writing and just have some prompts and begin the process, it's really possible for anyone to really come up with something that is, them. That's really what it is.
Well, yeah, and you quote Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. You kind of have to if you're doing this, you know. And also, you mentioned somebody else, I can't remember who, but I read it a while ago, and but there was somebody in the book who said that he would come home every day and his mother would say, "Did you ask good questions today?"
Right. That was
a famous scientist. That.
It was great.
Yeah, I loved
it was
that.
Isidore Rabi, I think. And he said when he was asked how did he become a scientist, he said, I became a scientist because my mother would ask me this question every day when I came home from school. Did you ask good questions?
I love that.
And so just that one question, right, enabled him to go back and say, oh, my mom's going to ask me this question. What question should I ask, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to...
Yeah.
Right. You want to come home with something to share. So another father came up with an idea with his daughter. He would travel a lot, and they'd try to talk on the phone. Didn't quite work. And I think it was, he said, I might not get the exact piece, but the emotional piece is true. I think he said something to her, what made you laugh today? Or something like that. And that became their question that then they could connect on. So it's, sometimes it's something that happens verbally like that then takes you into a certain place, a certain career, a certain relationship.
Wow, yeah, this is a really sneaky way of getting to know who you are yourself, too. You know what I mean? It's a really, you can't, because you have to start asking yourself, who would I send this letter to? Who do I want to express myself to? And then what do I want to express to that person? And then, because our inclination, like you said, is to, well, I'll wait till later when I'm older, you know, or I'll wait till something happens. And then it could be, may or may not be too late. But it's like you've got to get to it eventually. You know, it's something, you can't wait for it. You can't postpone this forever. But it does force you to sit down, and the questions in the book are excellent too, because the prompts that you've given will encourage that. And then other tips as well. Like, I think you call them stir it up techniques to just get yourself going.
Yeah, stirring it up, I think, or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think it is stir. But anyway, it's like, and one of the exercises I love too, and I've done this before as a writer, but it's to write your own eulogy of how you do want to, what you'd like to be remembered for. Right.
Right. There's so many ways to go about finding out who we are in different ways. And I think what happens as we sit down to write, the prompts, but even more so when we put a name on the page and say, dear whomever, and we think and we realize, what if this is our last letter we're writing? Now, hopefully it won't be. Hopefully we can write many more forever letters to this person over time. But what if it is, what do we most want to say about ourselves? And what do we most want to say to the person about them? And what do we most want to, say about our relationship? And I think that's just the key. And there's something about putting a name on a page. When I wrote a letter, the first forever letter I wrote to my son, I just started crying. I just was like, wow, this is huge. What do I most want? What do I most want to say? And and I also think that it's about, right, it's not about writing, and saying, I hope, especially if we're writing to children, it's like, I want you to be exactly like me, or you have to fulfill the dreams in my own life that I haven't fulfilled for myself, but I expect you to fulfill them, even if they might not be your dreams, right? I think that when we sit down and put ourselves on paper, we realize, wow, we see the dreams we had in terms of who we hope to be, and we realize as we are writing that, well, I didn't quite do that I really wanted to do, and I didn't quite show up in this way. And it's a realization like, wow, we didn't quite show up in the way maybe we wanted to. And how do we say that? Because maybe it needs to be said. I had hoped to do this and this and this, and I hope you'll do, let's say give charity, and I hope you'll give charity. I'm like, did I really, show my son that I was writing checks, and did I really teach him that, or was it just this idea of, oh, of course I'll do that, but I didn't quite follow through? So we see ourselves in bold relief when we begin to write, and there's to come out honestly and authentically to the people we're writing to is huge. It's huge for us, and it's huge for them. It might be something that, we has been a wedge between many of us for years. And it doesn't mean that every single exercise we write to, we have to share, right? There are still things we don't maybe want to share. And when we're writing, we do have to think about the person we're writing to and what they might be able to hear. So it's not that we need to figure out the tone that we're using. Tone is a big deal, right? I can say something. For example, I might say, you need to go to college because if you don't, your life is going to suck, right? That probably would not be a great way to say it. That's a tone. But I could say, if you find yourself wanting to go to college, we were able to put a little aside for you, and maybe you will find, maybe if it's not college, maybe it's other classes when you figure out what you want to do, to be able to have the wherewithal to do what you really love in the world, right? It's essentially maybe saying the same thing, but if I received the first letter, I would be like, oh my God, they're controlling, they're telling me what to do. And if I receive the second, I'd be like, wow, they're giving me a gift, and they're not telling me what to do. They're providing so that I can make my own decision.
Right, exactly. Well put. Well, we're halfway through already. So, I mean, this is like, I told you this could be a forever interview, not just a forever letter, because I could go on and talk to you forever about this. But we are going to run short of time eventually here, so I'm going to open up the lines in case anybody has a question for you. We're on the line with Rabbi Elena Zaiman, who's written a book called The Forever Letter, which I loved. And the subtitle is Writing What We Believe for Those We Love, because that's kind of where it goes. If you have a question about a forever letter or how to do one or any aspect of what we've been discussing or haven't discussed, please call in now, 949-313-8880. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer anything you have. Speaking of which, I have a question. So you're suggesting that basically that these be positive, even if I think you have an excerpt from an imaginary letter that you would think somebody was, as an example of an alcoholic leaving a letter for a child saying, I didn't realize how sick I was, and if I'd known, I could have done things differently, and I didn't. And that's a very positive take on things. But is it always necessary to keep it in a positive frame? And you're not suggesting that somebody just, let it all out and let them have it kind of thing. Does that make sense?
I think we want to follow with this idea of it being a forever letter. In other words, that we write it with the intention that someone will want to hold on to it. That it's not that everything has to be positive. We can successfully not command, and we can state hard truths with love. And there's ways that we can do that with the tone we use and the words we use. So, I think that the ultimate idea of this is to really deepen, heal, and uplift the relationship and the person to whom we're writing. So if there's absolutely nothing that you have to say to someone that is uplifting or nothing positive you can see in them, there might be exercises you do in the book initially to see if you can mine some of those and find some of those. Because otherwise, then why write the letter? The person, it's not helpful.
Exactly.
So the idea is, right, how do we connect, right, with ourselves, and how do we connect with that other person? And that is really the piece. And what I have found is, the more honest we are about who we are and who we're not, the more success we'll have, right? If I say, you were, a hard kid to raise, you were impossible, very different than saying, I look back at my mothering and I, while, we always joke you were a tough kid, I didn't have the skills that I wish I had then. And maybe I could have done something a little differently. And if we're honest about ourselves and we come forward and we sort of ask for forgiveness or we state that we weren't perfect, that opens up a door for someone else. In other words, we're not saying that we failed necessarily. We're saying that we're human, and we're saying that we're vulnerable, and we're saying that we don't always choose necessarily to do something right, or maybe didn't have the faculties at that point to do that. And if we're honest and truthful in that way, that often pushes a button in the other, like, wow, here's mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or my teacher coming, saying this and exposing themselves. And have you ever had it happen that someone exposes themselves, their vulnerabilities, and then you suddenly feel, okay, that person was really real. And I want to meet them in that really real spot. So I am going to now be a little more vulnerable with them and be more honest about what I really feel. And that catapults. And then it's a deeper sharing. And that's what we're kind of going for, is that deeper sharing. So opening up in that deeper way, in that vulnerable way, is the way to go. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to be commanding, but it can be stating some things that might be hard. And massaging tone and figuring out how to say it so that a person can hear it is also important.
Right. I think the word is compassion. Compassion. Mm-hmm. You come from a place of compassion, not just for the other person, but for yourself as well.
Nice point. Yes, absolutely.
I think that's kind of because I think people do lie. I think you even touch on that a little bit too. People tell white lies, and but what did you say about that? About people who lie in the book? You were. I can't remember exactly. I'm trying to think of it. Like it's not coming, but we have a caller. So
okay, great.
There we go. Hello, caller. Hello, are you there?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes. Can you hear me, Sergette?
Yes, I can. Hi. Can you hear us?
Oh, good.
Good.
Yes,
I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, good. I wanted to say thank you to Rabbi Elena, and I love the theme of your book, and I realized over the years I've written my own forever letters without realizing that's what I was doing, and received some short notes from dear friends that are not here any longer that I'm so happy I held on to them. So I don't think I have a question as much as I appreciate the path you've written to go forward. I'll be more thoughtful in the future when I write letters. I'll have that in my mind, a forever letter rather than just writing in that moment. And I'll definitely have to read the book because there was one letter I wrote that I'm sure that person would not want to hang on to. And I wrote it about 25 years ago. I wrote it out of anger and frustration and sort of threw out the gauntlet and an ultimatum. And to that person's credit, they respected my boundaries, but I don't think they really respected me. But it's probably mutual because I didn't respect them either. But I love the idea of being compassionate and what message are you trying to put across. And there is always something positive about everyone, regardless of how vulnerable we feel in the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there is something about, when we write something, my hope is that we actually, and when we do the exercises or when we begin the letter, that we don't send it right away. We sort of leave it in a file for, 3 weeks, a month or so, and let it just gel. And then we come back to it with different eyes. And some days, I don't know about, we all have our stuff, right? Some days I can be very self-judgmental and judgmental to others perhaps. And, if I wrote on one of those days, then I might see in my writing, if I look back at it, oh my gosh, this is not the tone I want to communicate in. And so I see myself in a different light, even just 2 to 3 weeks later as I pick it up anew. And so there's something to be said for that and for being able to have the gift of a little bit of time to then see how did we exactly show up.
Right. Unfortunately for me, 25 years later, I don't regret what I wrote, and maybe that's my regret. That I haven't grown past that, but there's still time.
Well, you're saying that you don't regret that you wrote it. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I did not wait, and I nailed it as soon as I wrote.
And then, and if you don't regret that you wrote it, then you wrote it and you stated your truth. And maybe it's a letter that the other person wouldn't want to hold on to because they heard it in whatever way. Maybe it wasn't a forever letter. Maybe it was a letter, right? And that you had to get out some. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you were writing that same, go on.
The only reason I call it a forever letter is because I'm sure it's still burned in their memory.
Got it. Got it. Well, it's still clearly burning in your memory. So,
yes.
Yeah, maybe it was a forever letter in a different kind of way, I guess. But that's
right.
my intention. My intention is a slightly different kind.
Well,
but, very interesting.
Fortunately, I've written more positive forever letters, not realizing that's what I was doing, but I'm more clear on the concept now. So going forward, I think my letters will be even better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank
we appreciate that. Thank you so much. That was a good. That was
you.
interesting.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. That's interesting, and again, it goes back to thine own self be true, and to others too, to be true about what you're telling them. I mean, perhaps she could have done it a little differently. Now she's saying that she will be more conscious of that, but that's because we're having this conversation, and I love that. I do. You're doing good work, Elana.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. That's the goal.
I think this is important.
The goal is, I have to tell you, in all of the kind of, I've been teaching this different these things for many years, and what always gets me is that, especially in particular, is issues of forgiveness. And I have people writing and tears pouring from their eyes as they're writing to someone in their family or a dear friend whom they had a falling out with. And it's still there. The pain is still there. And, will a letter open up a door? Maybe, maybe not. And how does one write that letter to maybe do that? But there is so much hurt that we carry around. And sometimes it's more visceral and more visible than others, and other times it's really deep under the surface. And do we even go back there or approach it? And people make different decisions about that. If it's someone they want to have in their life, then yeah. And if it's someone that they're not as, there's some terrible, terrible falling out or something, and there's no trust, then maybe no, this is not something that I want to reach out to do. But
exactly.
Yeah, and then this brought up an interesting piece, which I want to not forget to go back to, which is when we've sent this letter, usually the positive sort of more forever letter type deal, we have this sense sometimes, because we spend so much time on it and we've passed on love and whatever else we've done, that we expect a response. And we expect a response oftentimes like right away. And if we check our mail, we check our email, we wait for a call from the person we're writing to, hoping that they will be so happy and they'll say, oh, I got the letter, it was the best thing, or whatever. And the truth is that sometimes we don't get a response. And sometimes if we need a response, we can wait a little while and just sort of say, hey, did you ever get the letter I sent? Or maybe in the letter we can say, I'm opening this up for further conversation. I hope this letter kind of paves the way for further conversation. And so that can open up a possible, connectedness from the letter that might emerge. But I know that when my father handed me the letter he handed me, and it was so meaningful and beautiful, I just read it and cried and read it. And I never thanked him for it because the letter spoke. I didn't have to go. I don't think I had the wherewithal after reading it. I was exhausted, and I was felt so held by that letter. I didn't feel the need to have to go down and say, hey, Dad, thanks for the letter. It was great. I don't know if I ever really said anything to him. But it didn't mean that it wasn't meaningful, right? So
right, exactly. And I'm sure he knew that. I'm sure he knew that. Don't you feel that way?
He might have known.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have known it. But what I'm saying is, if there is this sense of, I need to have, someone respond to me, that's not quite the way of going into this. The way is to just sort of put it out there and hope, or to ask, to put an ask in the letter that, maybe this will, we can have further conversations from this, and try to, open it up that way. But to assume and expect some immediate response, sometimes someone just has to really take it in. Right?
And digest it and kind of process it too. Yeah. And that could take time. And they may never come to a place where they've processed it. And I still think
they have.
Yeah.
Go on.
I still think it's better to tell the truth, because even when I write anything, I tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. rather than white lies or fudging things. But then again, that said, that doesn't mean you have to send the letter either. You can write a letter and not send it too, right?
Absolutely. You can write a letter. You can use exercise. You can write a letter and not send it. And some of that information might be helpful to you in terms of maybe sitting down to write a different letter at some other point in time. You can also write a letter. Maybe there's some unresolved stuff with someone who has died, and maybe you just want to write that letter. And from that, there's a learning that maybe you learn something about yourself and about that relationship, so you can remember it more positively or put something to rest, or maybe it brings up something that is going on with you and a child or a grandchild, that it puts it in a different light. So there's still learning that can happen. But always, 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 there needs to be honesty and authenticity, and showing up with a sense of vulnerability. If you lie in a letter, whoever you're writing to will know it, and they won't take you seriously. And then your letter will not stand for much of anything. If you show up honest, if you show up as yourself, and again, you don't have to reveal every single thing about you, but if you show up with in that place of vulnerability and being open about who you were and who you were not, the chances that you will be heard are greater.
Right. That's exactly right. I was going to say if anybody else has a question, they can call in, but we're kind of running out of time. So if somebody has a really quick question, it's like we're getting to the end of this. So 949-313-8880, a really quick question. But if not, Elana, how can they find you? Is there a way that people, I know you do workshops and you're all over the place and you travel quite a bit. Where can they find out more about what you're doing, or how can they reach out to you?
They can reach out. I have a website that is just my name, Elana, Elana, Zaiman, Zaiman. And it's just www.elanazaiman.com. So that's a way to find me, and there's a contact page on that goes directly to an email that I will get. So that's the easiest way probably to find me and to reach out to me.
Okay, good. And then also, is your travel schedule on there where you're doing workshops or where you're facilitating any kind of teaching programs or anything like that?
So I have to update all of this, and I have not been so good at that. I've been more trying to get out there and do, and then I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to put this down and this down. So I have to get better at that. At the moment, I think there's one thing that's up and coming that's there, and I forgot to put 3 or 4 things in the interim that I just did. So I'm hoping to get better at that, yes. An area of growth. An area of growth.
Rabbi, welcome to my world. It's not easy. It's like keeping up with technology and social media and then updating sites and things like that. You'll get there, trust me. But I know exactly what you're talking about. But if somebody's in a certain area and they do want to know if you're coming, they can just email you as well, and hopefully you can let them know.
And if there's someone, I'm happy to travel. So I do like salons in people's homes, and I'll also go to different communities, social service communities, retirement communities, faith communities, and I will do sometimes interfaith work in terms of if there's a church or a synagogue or a mosque that want to get together, or a Hindu temple, and they want to do something together, Buddhist temple. We can do anything.
Yeah.
So I will fly out. I will do workshops, and it can be like a whole weekend workshop, a scholar in residence kind of weekend, whatever's of interest. If a day-long workshop, we can figure it out. And the more places in a given place that want to join together or have something the next day, then everyone can split the whole thing about bringing me out. It makes it much easier on each institution. So
there you go. I love that, and I love that you're willing to do that. So, and it's a wonderful thing, the Forever Letter. I never thought about doing one, and I am now. I will. And there was one thing I wrote down from what I read in the book too, that you said it's nice to have in there if you can, if you're being your authentic true self, as you said, is to say, I believe in you. And I wrote that down because I wrote it down for the person who I would write that letter to, because I know I would only write a forever letter to somebody I truly did believe in. And I would want them to know that. And I think it's important to let people know that you know that, and that you want to pass that on to them, that you believe in them, just as a person, that you believe in them. I thought that was lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, so now I'm going to do a forever letter. And I may do more than one, or I may do, as you suggested, because the person I'm going to do the forever letter is my daughter, who's 28 and a lawyer, and all of that. And I know she's going to make great changes in the world in general, but I want her to know how proud I am of her for going, not just going to the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Great. That's great. But it's more than that. It's her moral, ethical standards about changing the world for a better way. And I'd like her to know that before something happens to me, you know? Because we don't know. I've gone through a lot. I've just finished chemotherapy. People know this. But everybody has an expiration date, and I don't know when mine is, but I'm being forced to maybe look at it in more than most people are. But everyone should know that we don't know. We have no control over those kinds of things. There may be somebody who's never had cancer who could walk across the street tomorrow and get hit by a car, and that's it, you know? So I think it's important to put it down and to say what we need to say and not put it off to, well, someday I'll get to that, you know?
Right. And wherever we're at and wherever the person is, and it could be sparked because there's an up-and-coming birthday, or it could be sparked because someone lost a job, or because someone got a job, or it could be sparked by, an item you see that reminds you of someone. It could be sparked by anything. And, it doesn't have to be the last one, but you write it as if if this were the last piece, what are the most important things you want to say? But there's something about spending the time to do it, because we don't know how much time we have. None of us do. And we will put things off because they're hard to do, or because we claim we don't have time. And to set time aside to actually do something like this is a gift, not only for the person who's writing it to get to learn about themselves a little more, but hopefully it'll be a gift for the person that they're writing to hold on to, and to say, when I want to hear my mother's voice, or my father's voice, or my lover's voice, I can return to this letter, and I can feel their presence, even if they're not sitting with me in the room now.
Wow, that was beautifully said, and that's true. And it goes back to the listener who sent me when I was promoting this show, saying, her great-grandmother. And this is a person in her mid-60s who and her grandmother saved that letter that was written on the day she was born for 21 years, and then gave it to her. And I thought, I don't know what the letter said, but I just think that's awesome that was passed down from, and that her great grandmother took the time to write it.
It's amazing. It's incredible to have some of these letters that people have received. Also from some service people who are, in the Army or Navy or Air Force, and they're getting letters wherever they are, and sending letters back. Those letters are so cherished and held, and it's wonderful to be able to have that letter. And imagine that. At some point along the way, if you have a letter from a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or something, or a teacher whom you respected so much, and then at some point, let's say you or your child or someone names after this person, and then you have a letter in their own words about, how cool would it be to be named Estelle, and have a letter from Estelle, the great-great-grandmother, and just in her own, penmanship or maybe type, but in her words, so that you know who you're named after. You hear her voice. That would be like the coolest thing, right?
I think so. I think it would be beautiful. So I love this book, and I love this mission you're on to connect people this way, not to just other people, but to themselves. It's very deep. It's very personal. It's an excellent book. It's called The Forever Letter. Our guest today has been Elena Zaiman. I'm going to spell it again. It's ELANA and ZAIMAN, because that's also her website.com. So I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and sharing this. It just was so intimate and so lovely, and I really love the book. There's all kinds of anecdotal stories in there. There's sample letters. There's prompts. There's ideas to get your mind moving on who you should send it to, how you should send it, what you should say, all kinds of things. It's full of really good information. I really appreciate you being on the show tonight. Thank you so much.
Servette, thank you so much. It was a treat to get to know you even more, and look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you again. Take care. Good night. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Good night.
I love her. That's such a great book, and I really encourage all of you out there, if you've never written a forever letter, think about it. Even if you don't go get the book, or go get the book and then write one, or not. Just think about writing a letter to somebody and sending it, and mailing it, not handing it to them, mailing it to them. It's an awesome experience. Anyway, we're almost out of time, and you could reach me at servettehassan.com, ServetteHassan.com is my website, which most of you know is under construction. There will be a brand new website soon. But as even our guest today was saying, there's not enough time in the day for all these updates. But I'm getting there. And you can email me at servettehassan.com. I love hearing from you. I get a lot of emails before the show, and I get a lot after with comments and fun things that I like to hear, suggestions, all kinds of great things. We are not doing a show next week. It's Easter Sunday. So I'll be back the week after that, April 8th. I love Easter, by the way. Everybody that knows me knows that's one of my favorite holidays, because it's all about new beginnings. So sink that in, because we're all born again every single day, every single moment of every single day. But that's a chance to really reflect on that and to make those changes you need to make to have your new beginning. So keep that in mind. And then on April 8th, I'll be back with a guest. She's lovely too. Her name is Annie Mattingly. She's written a book called The After Death Chronicles. And the book actually starts, I do have one more caller here. I'll take it and I'll just see who it is really quickly, because we have to go. Hello, caller. Hello?
Hello, Servette. It's Elana.
Hi, Elana. You've got about 3 seconds.
Bye. I just wanted to say hi and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We're still live on the air. I'm sorry. This line is the studio line, so I thought you had something to add. But no, I will email you my personal. Yeah, we'll talk. I know we'll talk. But I'm still on wrapping up the show. But I'm just telling them how wonderful you were. So thank you again. Okay. Good night.
That's so fun.
I love it.
Good night. Bye-bye.
This is what happens when you're live, because you know, and I knew it was her, but I thought maybe she had something to add really quickly. But anyway, we have Annie Mattingly next April 8th. The book is The After Death Chronicles. It starts when her daughter died, and anyway, she's communicated, and there's all kinds of other stories in there. It's a wonder. It'll be a really interesting show. But anyway, I'm just going to go now and say be you to the full, because that's what's really truly beautiful. We talked about being your authentic self in your letters and in all of your writing, but just in life in general, because be you to the full is what makes life happen. And live it the way you want. This is your life to live as you choose. So do it your way, and have a blast doing it at the same time. I will see you soon. Thanks for listening. Good night.